Hello, this is Eileen White Swan. Welcome to the Mysterious Domain Movie Palace. This time I have a story for you about a man who met his doppelganger. Now, in case you don't know what a doppelganger is, it's colloquially when you meet someone who looks just like you, or someone will say, I saw someone who looks like you, they're your doppelganger. But what it really is something that comes out of German folklore. It means double goer. It's a wraith or an apparition that is your double. Not just something that looks like you, and it's not a ghost, because a ghost is a person who died. It's an apparition. It's your double. And apparently, according to folklore, every living thing on earth has a double, has a doppelganger. So our hero in this story meets this apparition, and his name is Mr. Nightingale, and he comes from the 1977 television series called Supernatural, and he is played by Jeremy Brett, and he is absolutely terrifying. The minute you see him walk onto the screen, this guy is intense. Now, a little more about the doppelganger theme. This story is really interesting, the way it's made. There's evidence that it was probably inspired by Fyodor Dostoevsky's story, The Double. And that story is about a poor clerk, and he's driven mad by his poverty and unrequited love. And he sees his own race succeeding in everything that he's failing in. And finally, by the end of the story, this wraith succeeds in getting rid of him and sort of taking his place in life, which is a really interesting concept and quite chilling. I mean, don't you think? Anyway, this story of Mr. Nightingale takes place in Germany. Mr. Nightingale is a British aristocrat whose father runs a transportation company, and he is sending his son, Mr. Nightingale, who is 35 years old and apparently never got out of the house before, because by his own admission, he's a virgin. And there seems to be an ulterior motive in the father sending him on this mission into Germany, where he stays with this German family who loves to read ghost stories and horror stories before they go to bed at night, and who has two daughters. One, the older one, played by Susan Maudslay, is a widow. The younger daughter is much hotter and much more beautiful, and she's played by Lesley-Anne, who flirts outrageously with Mr. Nightingale the whole time. Meanwhile, Mr. Nightingale, the virgin, feels very pressured about the situation that he's in, and one begins to wonder if he's okay. Certainly if he was okay before he came to the Steekebeck house, he wasn't once he met his doppelganger. Now, you all know Jeremy Brett as Sherlock Holmes. No, I didn't have a television at the time. I had friends who were really devoted to that show. And I saw enough of Jeremy Brett to know that I thought he was kind of scary as Sherlock Holmes. But he's even more scary as Mr. Nightingale. And he's quite a posh actor. He went to Eton and he was in Shakespeare plays and all that. So he had quite a distinguished career. And then Lesley-Anne, who plays Felizitas, the younger daughter. At the age of 15, she was voted Britain's most beautiful teenager. And she went on to have a very busy career in films and TV, and I remember her mostly from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, where she plays Esmeralda, and she was so gorgeous and so perfect in that role that it stays with me even today. I still remember her in that. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, where Quasimodo was played by Anthony Hopkins. I don't remember him as well as I remember her. And Susan Maudslay, there's very little about her. She made a couple films, but she actually looks like somebody I went to high school with. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is the music. All the supernatural episodes were scored by Paul Lewis, but his music for Mr. Nightingale is outstanding. It's really good. And in fact, it reminded me of the music in The Fearless Vampire Killers, which was made 10 years earlier. And I wondered if it was the same composer, because he's doing a lot of the same things. Actually, in Fearless Vampire Killers, the music was done by Krzysztof Komeda, probably another Polish guy that Roman Polanski knew. It's that same kind of spooky, slightly whimsical. It's got theremin, has, voices, and it's really, really amazing. But Paul Lewis scored lots of TV series in Britain, most notably, I suppose, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but many, many more. The director, again, is Alan Cooke, and the screenplay, of course, is written by Robert Muller, who wrote all the short stories in the book that this series was based on. So I hope you enjoy Mr. Nightingale. Don't get too scared. It's pretty scary, but I hope you don't watch this before bed.
I am, in a manner of speaking, not.
Well, ask him to speak up.
You must speak up. Yes. Oh, gentlemen, you must forgive me. You see before you someone who feels it incumbent upon himself to hoard such pitiful remnants of his bodily strength as he still possesses. Indeed. Even as I begin, I am already overcome by anxiety, lest I should be unable to conclude. Do it! Thank you. Let me say it ones, of course. I am mad. Had you shared my experience, I'll wager that you too would now be unbalanced. All of you. The dreadful misfortune of my life began over 30 years ago, while I was visiting the free port of Hamburg. Then as now a city of beauty and energy, although its heart and soul had been ravaged by the Great Fire of 1842. As the younger son of an established Norwich coach builder, I had been sent to Hamburg by my father to negotiate the construction and sale of those canary yellow carriages which the leading burghers had found to be ideally suited as public conveyances. My host was the venerable Senator Otto Steekebeck, an old friend of my father's. All the members of his charming family were courtesy itself. Always, for instance, choosing to speak English in my presence, and in all manners of ways contriving to make the stranger feel welcome in their house. This was one of those characteristic old merchants' houses built along the narrow canals which link the River Elbe with that magnificent lake, the Alster. During the day, my hosts would show me the sights of the city. Then in the evenings, we would all sit together around the stove, and by the glow of candle and fire, beguile one another with fearful ghost stories. Nor had it escaped my observation, gentlemen, that my father's intent in sending me to Hamburg may not have been solely the interests of the family business. For I was 35, and still a bachelor, and I suspect that my father and Herr Steekebeck hoped to connect me with Frau Steekebeck's widowed cousin, Elyse. Her wealthy husband, a shipbuilder, had perished in the Great Fire before poor Elyse had even reached the tender age of 20. Oh, gentlemen, the passionate glances that would pass on those flickering nights between that lady, herself so long deprived of conjugal joys, and the no longer young bachelor who had never tasted them at all. Myself, thus we sat, with the Steekebecks usually imbibing mulled wine. I chose, as always, to abstain.
It will be in vain to follow, for I shall learn no more of him, nor of his deeds.
Very good. Very good. It is an English writer?
Oh, no, madam, American. American?
A Red Indian.
Felicitas! Tomorrow, Herr Nightingale, it will be your turn.
Oh, but I'm afraid I know nothing suitable, Frau Steekebeck. I am not versed.
Then I shall lend you one of these. Let me see. I have in my room many English books.
I am ready for my bed.
Oh, yes, we should all like to retire for the night now.
Yes, I have the need. Oh, I have seen so much of your beautiful city today, Frau Steekebeck.
Then you must go to bed, Herr Nightingale.
My hosts had once again amused themselves, unaware that their monstrous stories of ghosts and vampires had chilled me to the bone. Ever since my poor mother's untimely death, two obsessive fears haunted my life. The fear of loving and the fear of dying. How long before my spirit would succumb, crushed between these two monstrous pillars of dread. I knew that I could never hope to come to terms with the one fear unless I vanquished the other. In that house, in the alien city of Hamburg, I now dimly perceived my last chance to conquer the horror once and for all, as it had conquered me. The moment I crossed the threshold at night, this room, with its strange shapes and flickering shadows, filled me with cunning, devious, inexplicable terror and dread. I felt that I was never once alone in that room, that I was being watched, perhaps guarded or protected, possibly even menaced. But by whom? Every sleepless night, outside the window, I thought I glimpsed seagulls mewing and diving. Seagulls at night, black seagulls.
Good morning, Mr. Nightingale.
Good morning, Fraulein Felizitas.
It is for coffee, isn't it? Yes.
It is true, Herr Nightingale, you eat fish for breakfast in England.
It is not uncommon, sir.
Only for breakfast?
No, sometimes for luncheon, too. In some houses, on Fridays, usually.
Ah, it is a religious practice.
Well, in a manner of speaking, yes.
Fish is also served for supper in England, surely? Yes, I have read that in Mr. Pepys' book. He is always supping on fish.
Yes, indeed.
Then you eat fish for breakfast, luncheon, and then again for supper. 3 times a day you have it.
Oh, no, you have mistaken me, Fraulein Felizitas.
I thought that...
Felicitas.
No, it is most unusual to have fish more than once a day. In England, most unusual.
Then we shall have it for our luncheon today. Fish. Place on the bone, Herr Nightingale, in your honor.
Place fresh from the North Sea.
It is a local speciality, fresh from the sea and into the frying pan.
How is this supposed to be the best fish in the world, Herr
An
Nightingale?
old fisherman brings it to me directly to the house.
Still wet.
The recipe for cooking the fish, it is the same as you have in England.
Briefly, but quite unmistakably, I could see the disappointment in Frau Elise's eyes. She had given me due consideration and had found me wanting.
And then the little slices of bacon are served as a... on top of the fish, the finished fish.
A garnish, my dear, a garnish.
How do you like it, Herr Nightingale?
What? No, I beg your pardon.
How do you like your fish prepared?
Perhaps Herr Nightingale does not care for fish.
I fear I am not over fond of fish. Indeed, no. If I'm being perfectly honest, I don't care for fish at all.
Perhaps he feels sorry for our poor place. 1 minute he is alive, swimming happily in the sea, and the next...
Is it different for human beings? One cannot ever be sure.
In the midst of life. Ah, yes.
The fire. Our fire, Herr Nightingale.
Yes, our fire. From one moment to the next, death and extinction.
Oh, yes, how true. I mean, one never can be sure of anything in this life. I mean, not even when one is going to die. And yet I must admit that I've often thought how incredible, how marvelous it would be if one could know when. When.
When one will die, Herr Nightingale.
Are you better, Mr. Nightingale? Are you better?
Yes, thank you, yes.
Someone has just walked over your grave, yes?
It was nothing, sir, nothing.
Do you wish for a glass of water?
It really is a pity that I am not more fond of fish. It's a great pity indeed.
The days passed. The Steekebecks became my friends. But at night, the secret solitary terrors seized me still. How I prayed and dreaded that Elyse, or dare I admit it, even Felizitas, would knock upon my door on some innocent pretext. Abominable thought. Was it for such speculations that my father had sent me here? Was this how I would conquer my fears? I determined to take a sleeping draught and to pray to my mother for grace.
What do you want? What do you want? The truth. I want the truth.
The truth?
Oh, no, please. Help me. They're flying. Black seagulls.
think the family would disapprove, Herr Nightingale.
Because we have both decided, quite independently, not to go to evening service tonight, Frau Elyse.
I think once is quite enough, even on Sundays.
At home, I attend Mass. On Sundays.
You are not a Lutheran, Mr. Nightingale.
Alas.
Herr Topelius is something strange also, a Danish sect.
Herr Topelius?
Frau Steekebeck's father, who reads so well the ghost stories.
But I thought I understood him to be Herr Steekebeck's father.
Oh, no.
But old Frau Steekebeck...
Old Frau Steekebeck is Herr Steekebeck's mother, but Herr Topelius is Frau Steekebeck's father. It is somewhat confusing, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, they seem so much like husband and wife. I thought...
Old Frau Steekebeck and Herr Topelius, oh, they would laugh to hear themselves so described. They are certainly not married to each other. They are widowed. As we are.
But Frau Elyse, I'm a bachelor.
Yes, I'm...
Single, Frau Elyse. Single. It is a good manner of living.
Is it, Herr Nightingale?
He described his own condition as being quite beyond comprehension. The most terrible anguish now mingled with a ravishing delight he had never experienced before. Suddenly, he was in the midst of a brightness so dazzling that it blinded him. But on awakening, he still felt the anguished dread of his dream. He instantly rushed into her room. Her hands, as she lay on the divan, were devoutly folded. She looked as if sleeping peacefully, dreaming of the joys of heaven. But she was dead.
A beautiful translation.
But sad, so sad.
Sad? What nonsense. I didn't believe a word.
Felicitas.
Tonight, I hope I shall not dream.
But such ghastly things do not happen in Hamburg, my dear.
I should hope not.
Indeed, no.
Herr Steekebeck.
Yes?
But might I have a few words with you, sir, in private?
But of course. Kommer gleich.
It is too nice.
Please? Yes?
I have some regrettable news from Norwich, sir.
Mr. Nightingale.
Well, to come to the point at once, we cannot now manufacture the vehicles that you require.
Ah, you mean something untoward has occurred in Norwich?
Oh, not in Norwich, sir.
It would doubtless be more correct to discuss matters of commerce at my contor, Herr Nightingale.
Where you, sir, are assisted by your own clerks and ledger keepers who offer you protection. Huh? Huh?
Are you saying, Herr Nightingale? Are you saying there is some irregularity in our accounts? That I, a senator,
Yes.
would ever act in an incorrect manner?
Incorrect. Oh, sir. If I were not a guest in your house, I should express myself far more forcefully.
I see you are drinking our grog, Herr Nightingale. Are you perhaps unwell?
Well, I'm perfectly well, sir. And in spite of your vicious insinuations, sober. Which is not a condition to be found too frequently among the members of your household, sir.
I trust you will feel well again in the morning, Herr Nightingale. When we will, of course, investigate this matter most thoroughly. At my contour.
God. Yes. God. Yes. Help me to find it. Find it? The truth. The date. The date of my death. Death. Is it that? The purpose. The purpose.
Nightingale, excuse me, but well, last night I heard such voices. Oh, forgive me. I know I should not be here, but I must ask you, Herr Nightingale, is it in such a fashion that one repays the gift of hospitality in England?
Don't come in there! Frau, Steekebeck, no one stand!
Is my husband's house to you, Herr Nightingale? What have you made of it?
Only if I have done anything to offend you, dear lady, anything to warrant your censure, I most humbly beg your family's forgiveness.
Why, how strange, Herr Nightingale. Did I imagine it? Did I hear you say you did not care for fish?
I love fish. I like nothing better. It's so fresh, so firm, so flaky.
Then I must be developing deafness or a faulty memory.
Felizitas, bitte.
Indeed.
Indeed. For I heard you say quite distinctly on more than one occasion that you could not abide fish of any kind.
Oh, I love fish. Of any kind. As I love life itself!
Herr Nightingale is not feeling very well, Felicitas.
Oh, then shall you not be visiting Papa at his contour tomorrow morning?
Our business is concluded. Or, if I may presume, to be perfectly honest, terminated. Terminated!
Herr Nightingale, I regret to say, will shortly be returning to England.
What?
I didn't know. I was not told.
She was not told.
What?
So soon. And you have not even paid proper attention to our beautiful harbour.
Oh, what neglect. But that will never do. I must see it. Your beautiful harbour.
Then do you wish that I shall be your guide?
Are you expert in such things as harbours?
Very expert, Herr Nightingale.
Then who would dare to resist?
Felicitas!
And who would dare to refuse such a delightful invitation?
Tomorrow, then?
No. Tonight. I'm more composed after supper.
Excuse me.
Do you know, I think I could consume another fish. Yes, I really think I could. Eine zweite Scholle! Dankeschön.
You walk along this way for an hour, Herr Nightingale. You will come to...
Yes?
to where the fishermen live. The men who bring Mamma her fish. There has not always been a wall here, Herr Nightingale. Before the fire, there were little cottages here. I remember.
Before the fire? But how could you possibly remember? You were too young. No, the Great Fire was 18 years ago.
But I do remember. It is locked in my memory. It is my first memory.
The fire. Was it dreadful?
Dreadful! Oh, it was wonderful. Wonderful. I was so little. I was curled up in my father's strong arms, and he held me so close. And we watched the flames leaping all along the roofs of the little cottages, higher and higher, swallowing everything. And my father holding me so close, so tight, and shading my eyes with his big hand. But I could see between his fingers, see everything.
The flames?
Yes. Oh, how I wish.
What?
I want to see them again. I want them to come again, just for me. Flames, raging fires. There, look. Look. Those tall masts, such an old and decrepit freighter. Useless and old. Older even than you. How the masts would crackle and burn.
Like a ship in a bottle?
Yes, like a ship in a bottle.
The bottle in my room?
Yes, that one in your room.
We could watch them together.
Burst into flames, burn all night.
Burn until there was nothing but ashes.
Burning and blazing. Oh, I want it too. I want it too.
not even know your first name, your Christian name. Must you go away? Can you not stay a few more weeks? And why have you been so disposed to quarrel with your hostess, with Herr Steekebeck? And now you have made them all afraid. Oh, my dear.
Today, you promised to reveal it to me. The ultimate truth. Then I shall have conquered eternity.
God, no.
The hour, the minute, the second when death will strike them down. The old fools, Herr Steekebeck, the cheat, those poor deluded women. What? Children? I have no children. I never shall have children.
You will have one.
Who are you?
The mother of your unborn child, my love.
Black seagulls. Black seagulls. Black seagulls. Black
The omelette is excellent, Mama.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Far more tasty than my own omelettes.
And more nutritious, too.
The art of making omelettes is very simple. My own dear mother...
It is not an omelette.
It is not?
It is not an omelette.
What did he say?
He says it is not an omelette, Mama.
It is a pancake. A stuffed pancake.
But Herr Nightingale...
Oh, you look it up. Felizitas, fetch the cookery book, please.
It is not important, surely. It is only an omelette.
It is not an omelette, it is a pancake. And an overcooked pancake at that.
There.
Me. Let me. Here, now. Omelettes. There. Prepare and whip 6 eggs, 6 spoonfuls of cream, and 6 spoonfuls of flour.
There, you see, you lie. Flour, indeed. It never could be an omelette.
Please listen. In another saucepan, boil together some skimmed sweetbread and add together with diced shallot and onion a free.
It is a pancake.
There is going to be a storm.
A very bad storm, Herr Nightingale, like it was on the night of the fire. I recall it as though it were yesterday. All the old houses collapsed.
They are not agreeable memories.
Not agreeable? Or the fire? Or the stuffed pancake, which you were pleased to call an omelette, you malicious, deceitful people. Oh. The approach of death, perhaps. Is that more agreeable? Yes, why are you so afraid of it? Of death? It is no vice. It is not unspeakable. The Bible never ceases to speak of it. It is an adventure. It approaches. At any moment it may strike.
Please, my dear friend.
Yes, your dear friend.
Correct.
And in my house, stop it, wanton. What? I cannot understand it. Why are they all so angry? Herr Nightingale.
Yes, but surely you can understand, old woman. Can you not? What power it must give you if you can find the precise instant, that very moment, savor it, taste it, on the tip of the tongue, the moment of dying.
No, make him cease.
Herr Nightingale, I really must insist in the presence of...
And shall
Go on.
vouchsafe to each one of you the exact moment of death.
Oh, no, I don't want
Have pity on us.
So prepare yourselves. According to your religious practice, you have not long.
Paradise.
I have written them down. The dates. The hour when it will strike. When each one of you will be, without mercy, cut down.
Mother! The ship is on fire!
Felizitas! No!
Yes, this is how I dreamt it. All of it happening again to me. Oh, the sun center, the cold and burning center.
Why? It was her day. Her day. Murder. Murder. Dear Mr. Steekebeck, even in the midst of the lamentable circumstances that have befallen your house, sir, it behoves me, as an English gentleman, to write to you not merely to thank you for the impeccable hospitality which you and your family vouchsafed to me during my all too brief visit to your charming city, but also to offer you my heartfelt condolences over your dreadful misfortunes. During those weeks as your guest, I learned to admire your late daughter's vivaciousness and love for life, as well as the warm, generous character of poor, gentle Frau Elyse, having grown so fond of them. I can appreciate what an appalling loss you must feel. First the death of dear little Felizitas, and then the total abandonment of reason by gentle Frau Elyse after her miscarriage in that fearful-sounding institution for the mad. Will that do? I think that will do, don't you? Should you ever imagine that I was in some small measure to blame for these tragic events, may I offer you my most humble and sincere apologies. For my part, I'm about to travel to the seaside in order to enjoy a much-needed period of convalescence. Your loyal friend, Nightingale. P.S. The directors of my father's company note with regret that our yellow conveyances will no longer be required by your Senate.
As you see, gentlemen, now an old man, with few of the consolations of old age, to be elected a member of your august establishment would mean much to a lonely old soul.
Sir, you are, by your own despicable account, a damned murderer.
I suppose. If anyone was to blame for the death of young Felizitas in the fire...
You were responsible for that, and responsible for the destruction of your own unborn child, and the insanity of that poor, wretched widow that you seduced.
I say, if anyone was to blame, it was him.
Him? Oh, well, in that case, produce him, sir.
Do you really mean to say that you cannot see him, gentlemen? He stands by that candelabra, as young and strong as he was that first night when he proffered his magic powers to me in that room in Hamburg. While I have, as you perceive, grown old and frail.
Mr. Nightingale. I regret to have to tell you that you have failed to satisfy us. Your story was bizarre, but patently untrue. This other person doesn't exist, never has existed.
Well, gentlemen, you must all be blind. Look there. He smiles. No, I swear it. Every word that I have said is true. Every word. This is not my day. I shall live for a long time yet. I have his word for it.
I wanted to add a little piece about the doppelganger thing. The first time I heard about a doppelganger was in art history, because I love the Pre-Raphaelites, and Dante Gabriel Rossetti, who was the king of the Pre-Raphaelites, I suppose, he just seemed like the leader, you know, his personality and everything. had made a painting called How They Met Themselves, where he and Elizabeth Siddal, his first, most famous model, meet their wraiths, and she passes out because to meet your doppelganger is to meet your death. Now, there's an interesting story about that and about Dante Gabriel Rossetti. His mother was a Polidori, and her brother was Dr. John Polidori, who had stayed in the Villa Diodati with Lord Byron and Mary Shelley in Switzerland, and who wrote the first ever vampire novel called The Vampire, which was kind of a critique of Lord Byron and his ways of the world, his sexual adventures and all this stuff. So Dante Gabriel Rossetti's uncle wrote the first vampire novel. And you can see in Dante Gabriel Rossetti's work, because he's obsessed with Dante's Beatrice, who is, in a sense, she's an otherworldly lover, or for Dante, a dead lover. He's in love with a dead woman. Let's just put it in simple language. Dante was in love with a beautiful dead woman. And there's a theme that seems to run through from John Polidori through Dante Gabriel Rossetti to Elizabeth Siddal, who is often posed as Beatrice, and Dante's really quite terrible treatment of Elizabeth Siddal. Now, he was also kind of like Lord Byron in being an absolute womanizer and never having a shred of conscience, I don't think, about the effect it was having on Lizzie, who was supposed to be his partner, and eventually they did get married. And while they were married, he became famous, and his paintings were selling, and he was being successful. And because she was the model in so many of his paintings, a lot of women in London copied her look. They wanted to look like her. She was, someone called her the first supermodel. But beyond that, she actually did meet her doppelganger. She was coming with Dante out of a pub. It was like in the winter. It's Covent Garden or something like that. And they were coming out of the pub, and she saw the spine-chilling, terrifying visage of her otherworldly double. And shortly after that, she died at the age of 33. She died of a broken heart, basically, because she'd had her baby with Rossetti, but because her laudanum use was so severe, the baby didn't live. And she used to rock the empty cradle and cry. So basically, yeah, she died of a broken heart. And Rossetti was obviously grief-stricken and stricken with guilt, and he had written a book of poems to her. So when she died and she was buried in Highgate Cemetery, and I've been to her grave, he buried this book of poems with her. And 10 years later, he was really famous for writing as well, and his agent or publisher, whatever, Mr. Howell, said, "Where's that book of poetry you wrote about Lizzie?" He said, "Well, they're in her coffin where I put them when she died." Here they are, howling away again. Children of the night, what music they make. The children of the late afternoon. So he said, "I buried the poems with Lizzie when she died. They're in her coffin." So Howell got the idea that, hey, you know what, maybe we should dig her up and get the book out. Well, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, he had to bypass several layers of conscience. He had to pray. He had to mea culpa. He had to go to confession afterward. But he agreed to let this last indignity to Lizzie Siddle be done and dig her up. Get the book out, because after all, they make money with that thing. So they did it. And the story was that when they dug her up, her hair, her golden red hair was flowing out of the coffin, and she was as beautiful as she had been in life, and she hadn't decayed, and she was basically looked like a vampire. So I don't know why nobody ever wrote a story about Lizzie Siddle, the vampire. Anyway, the whole trope had come full circle. And Rossetti, of course, and he became addicted to laudanum. He had a lot of guilt about what he'd done to her. That's that little aside I wanted to tell you about the doppelganger and about the pre-Raphaelites and Rossetti and the vampire theme and Lizzie Siddle actually seeing her doppelganger and dying shortly afterwards. So I hope you like my little story. Thank you. Bye-bye.